Namaskar. Welcome to another episode of Editorial. I have a very interesting editorial for you today. Dr. Subramanian Swamy calls India, China and Russia Ghulam, Sahib and Biwi. Now this is very interesting. Let's talk about that. My second topic is, I believe that Jawaharlal Nehru was possibly the best Prime Minister India ever had. Let's talk why. Now, before I get into the show, both these topics are related. And I will tell you why. Let's get right into the show now. Okay, now UNSC, that is United Nations Security Council, India, Russia and China abstain from the resolution on Myanmar that calls for the end of violence and release of political prisoner including Aung San Suu Kyi. Okay, so India basically didn't go against the military government of Myanmar. India, China and Russia abstained from voting. To which Subramanian Swamy said, we are Ghulam, India is Ghulam, China is the Sahib and Russia is China's partner, Biwi. So that's what he said. Primarily, he said we should have voiced our opinion against the military government of Myanmar. Now, something similar happened even with Russia and Ukraine. When India was not very vocal about going against Russia in the United Nations, India was not very vocal about going against Russia even in any forums, but India always maintained that this is not the time of war. This is not the age of war. It is the age of economic growth. So we have urged Russia to refrain from using force and so on and so forth. All that we did, but we didn't openly go against Russia. A lot of people both globally and locally had criticized the Indian government. Now let me tell you, somewhere down the line, what the country did, what India did, what Indian diplomats did, what the Indian government did was fair. Had we gone against Russia, it would have harmed our economy very, very badly. So, primarily, let us not debate the Ukraine-Russian who is right and who is wrong. Let's keep that aside. But from an Indian perspective, it was beneficial for India to not go against Russia. Not that we went out to support Russia, that we didn't do, but not go against Russia. It was beneficial for India from an economic perspective and from our lives perspective. And this is very similar to what is happening in Myanmar also. You see, Myanmar, there is a lot of unrest in Myanmar. We share 1,200 kilometers border with Myanmar. Tomorrow, if we go against the government, you will be surprised when we have a lot of extremists and terrorists and all of that coming into Indian borders from Myanmar. The government will not cooperate with us. So, it is in our national interest that we keep away and we keep away from these conflicts and we do not go openly against Myanmar in forums like the United Nations Security Council. Right, wrong, otherwise moral, ethical, we can discuss that later on. But as far as India's benefit is concerned, India's national interest is to ensure that we don't go against countries like Myanmar and Russia. So this was the point. So one of the things that, I would like to talk about Dr. Subramanian Swamy is that I have never heard Dr. Subramanian Swamy give a constructive statement because all his life he has only been criticizing, be it Sonia Gandhi, be it Rahul Gandhi. This was the same individual who a few decades back was professing secularism, and the same individual after a few decades started being absolutely Hindutvawadi. A few decades back, he was singing praises of the Gandhi family, and a few decades after that, all cases that you are talking about against the Gandhi family has been done by this person. So I don't know where this person stands. I don't know what this person does. He is very educated and all that. I don't know how all of that knowledge has helped this country, if at all it has helped this country or not. So keep that aside. That's my personal view. Let's throw that out of the window. Now, I told you my second topic was that Jawaharlal Nehru was probably one of the best prime ministers India ever had. And I said my topics are collected. You see, before I talk about what and who Jawaharlal Nehru is, let me talk about a lot of people today say that, Jawaharlal Nehru, which is not entirely truth either, that we could we could have got a permanent seat in United Nations Security Council. He said no, he gave it to China. China then fought war against us and they defeated us. He didn't know how to handle international relationships. Every fault. Baluchistan was thanks to Nehru. Pakistan was thanks to Nehru. Kashmir was thanks to Nehru. So everything that went wrong was thanks to Nehru, is what is being told to us. Now, the reason I said that my topics are connected is because today a lot of people would say that us not going against Russia in an international forum was in India's national interest. A lot of people will say that today because we know we live in this era. 30 years, 40 years, 60 years from now, maybe the youth of India then after 60 years would be saying that what a foolishness did the government of India do in 2022. How bad was the Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi, to have taken such a decision, and not supporting Ukraine? Russia had waged war against Ukraine and we didn't go against Russia. How wrong it was. 60 years from today, people may say that. And maybe a lot of people then, politicians may say, all wrong, Modi, Mr. Narendra Modi is possibly the worst prime minister ever. It is because of him that, we didn't support Russia. It is because of him that we didn't support Myanmar. Because 60 years from now, the situation would be different. And therefore, the action taken before 68 would look different. Now, juxtapose the same with Nehru. A lot of decisions that Nehru took in 1946, 1950s, 1960s were based on situations then. And possibly in 2022, sitting here today, when we look at the situation, we say, wo galat tha, ye to ekdam galat tha. Because we are viewing those decisions based on our perspective of today's world, not on our perspective of 1950s or 1940s world. And that is why when you criticize people like Nehru, Gandhi, without even knowing what their achievements are, it pains. Now, let me tell you what Nehru must have faced. When Nehru got India, the first thing he was combating is the partition. Pakistan going separate. Giving Pakistan close to 55 crores those days. Dividing things with India and Pakistan. That was what he is going through. While he was going through all of that, while he was setting a brand new country, Nehru, let me talk about some of his achievements. Nehru focused on education. You see, today, if you talk about Indians being global leaders, Indians being corporate leaders, top companies, most of the companies, Indian CEOs, you know why? Because most of those guys has got something called as an IIM, IIT next to them. And that's what makes us global leaders, our education. And this education, 1940s, 1950s is when Nehru had sown the seed. That was the foresight of a man who was fighting, who was handling a partition. China was still there. He was trying to feed people. He was trying to build basic infrastructure, roads, basic infrastructure, health. And in the meantime, his foresight was to build these kinds of institutions because he knew possibly today in 2022 when we are sitting here, our people would be global leaders. I'll give you some example. In 1950s, the first iconic Institute of Technology in Kharagpur was built. Bombay was built in 1958. Madras was built in 1959. Kanpur was built in 1959. Delhi was built in 1961. All under Nehru. All his vision of giving India one of the best colleges, and creating few of the best engineers from India. And this IIT today is creating world global leaders. That was Nehru's vision. And like I told you, imagine what was he fighting at that point in time. I always told you, people, leaders, by looking at people around them. I had given you an example of Prannoy Roy. Why is Prannoy Roy a great leader? Prannoy Roy a fantastic manager? Because look at the people he created. It is not just about Prannoy Roy and how good anchor he was. Look at the people he created. Barkha Dutt, Rajdeep Sardesai, including that Arnab Goswami. All these are products of NDTV, products of Prannoy Roy. They were mentored by this great leader called Prannoy Roy. So therefore, that makes Prannoy Roy a fantastic leader, a fantastic visionary and a great manager. Likewise, look at Nehru. Look at the people who he actually picked up, who he got close to. People like Vikram Sarabhai, who later on went on to make the Indian Space Research Program. Sir C.V. Raman, who went on to make the Indian Institute of Science, which is supposed to be better than IIT, is what people say. Homi Bhabha, the founder of Bhabha Atomic Research Center, when in 1950s, this is the story of 1950s. Satish Dhawan, Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, made by him. SS Bhatnagar, Council of Scientific and Industrial Research, and many others. Look at the people around Jawaharlal Nehru. What does that talk to you about him as a leader? Because only a leader, a phenomenal intellect can attract such great intelligence around him. That was Nehru. Now let's look at some scientific organizations that he has built. Department of Atomic Energy, 1954. Bhabha Atomic Research Center, 1954. Physical Research Laboratory, 1947. ISRO, that is Indian Space Research Organization, 1962. National Chemical Laboratory, 1950s. National Physical Laboratory, 1947. Fuel Research Station, 1946. Central Glass and Ceramic Research Institutes, 1950. National Meteorological Laboratory, 1950s. If we talk about Chandrayaan, if we talk about Mangalyaan, is because of his vision in 1950s. He knew that if he puts foundation for an ISRO today, in possibly a 2022, you could be going to Mars. So the point, long and short, what I wanted to make is, end of the day, when you criticize a person, he took a wrong decision, we would have been in Security Council, that would have not been lost, Kashmir problem is because of Nehru. When you criticize somebody, you need to realize what era and what was the circumstances he or she took that decision. Believe me, most of the decision taken by us in this era and under this circumstances could also be questioned 50 years from today. That's the point I wanted to make in today's editorial. Two things I want to say before I end. One is, from 1st of January, we're going to make some changes. You see, HW News Network, our first ever YouTube channel that we had made when we started off, that YouTube channel now is going to have both English and Hindi programs. So that's going to be a repository of all our programs that we do, all our videos that we do. So please do subscribe there. Please do press those bell icons and all that, because that will give you an entire perspective of HW News Network. While that being said, English channel will remain as is, HW English will remain as is, HW Hindi will remain as is, HW Marathi will remain as is. There won't be any changes there, but you will have one platform, one channel that will have all our stories together. So that's the first thing I wanted to tell you. Second thing, as usual, please do subscribe to us. Please pick up a package of your choice so that helps us financially. Until I see you next time, that is on Friday, tomorrow at 10 p.m. Namaskar.
To know about the latest updates on our new news app, go on your Android or iOS, search for HW News Network. Download our app, choose the language you prefer to get updates in, and be up to date with the latest news.